Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this pendant here. A little while back I actually made a similar pendant, but these little rays here, if you think of this as a sun, the little sun rays, but to me it actually looks a little bit more like a star. So on that one they look different, but on this one they are just kind of coming straight across in like little bursts like this. That's why I think it looks more like a star. And the rest of it though, the way that the stone is secured and the way the bail is done is the same as that tutorial. It's just that these little points are different. So if you want to see how to make this version of a sun or a star or even snowflake, it could look like a snowflake pendant, then just keep watching. So I'm starting out with one piece of 20 gauge square copper wire, and it measures about 8.5 inches long. So what you want to do is you want to find the middle of your piece, so it's roughly here, and then you just want to envision, so like you want to take like a little chunk out of the middle, you know, don't just hold it in the middle, but like envision like an inch in the middle. It's okay to estimate, you don't have to like measure or do it perfectly. So like this, see the way I'm holding it, so it's gonna start here and then continue for till here, and it's gonna be like a little chunk that's in the middle. So what you're gonna do in this little space is you're gonna wrap another wire, a thinner wire, around, and the one I'm using is 22 gauge round wire. Now you can use all round wires because obviously this wire is square, but you could use round. It's just a little trickier to use all round wires, but for this thinner wire I like to use round. I just like to use square for the thicker base wire, but you don't have to. You can just use 20 gauge round wire for your thicker wire. And I'm not gonna measure this, I'm just gonna keep it on the spool. I'm basically weaving with it, and it's pretty hard to weave with such a thick wire, so that makes it a little tricky, but it has to be a thick wire because otherwise it's going to be kind of floppy what we make, and you want it to be nice and sturdy. So to get myself started, I'm just doing a single wrap. Sometimes it's easy to reinforce it a little bit with your pliers just because the wire is so tough. I'm just gonna put this little end down like this, so it kind of looks like I have two little wraps going on there, if you can see that. And zoom in some more, two little wraps. So what you want to do now in order to do our weaving pattern, so now we're going to need some additional little scraps of wire. So I actually had these as scraps. They don't have to be very long, and what you want to do is you want to find 3 pieces. If you don't have scraps, you're just gonna have to cut yourself 3 pieces, but you want to do, we'll just do one at a time. We're gonna do a weaving pattern around those wires, the scrap wires, and then at the end we're gonna remove them. Okay, so first we're just gonna add one, and we're gonna wrap around that one, and I'm just gonna press it down a little bit with my pliers here. And now we're gonna take the next one, and I'm gonna wrap it around that next one and just press it down here with my pliers. And now the third one again. So I'm wrapping it around all 3 now, pressing it down with my pliers. So now we want to go back down, so it looks kind of like steps going up, 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 up. Now we want to come down. So we're gonna press this up and we want to wrap it around, so not that top one. So ignore the top one, put it underneath and wrap it around just the two. And then press it down with your pliers. And now we're just going to lift that up a little bit and wrap around the other ones here. And now we're going to wrap around just this single wire here on the bottom, the real wire that we're going to use, not the little scraps that we're going to get rid of. So I'm just working that closer, trying to tighten that up. All right, and now we've completed one section. So this is what we're going for, but we're going to be doing this several times to make several little spikes, or whatever you want to call this. So now it's time to wrap around two wires again. So we're going to go kind of up, doing the little steps going up. So wrapping around two wires, and I'm just pressing that down with my pliers there. Then wrapping around three wires. So our wire plus the two scrap wires. That's why it's three. I'm just trying to tighten this up. There's a little bit of spacing there. There we go. Just too big of a gap. All right. So now that's around those, and just our very top one there. All right. So we've worked our way up. And now we just have to come down. So down and down one more, and finally we got to the bottom now. So just one wrap around the bottommost wire. So now we have two of these little spiky things. So that's it. Then you just repeat this maybe like 3 more times, and then I'll show you the next step. All right, so once you've done 5 of those, make 2 loops at the end here so it matches the beginning. We have 2 loops and 2 loops, and then we're just gonna trim this wire and give ourselves just the teeniest, tiniest little end there, because I want that little end, and then this one as well that we started with. I want that little end of the wire to be hidden away here on this edge. I don't want it to be on the front or on the back, so I'm just pinching down that little tiny wire end, and it's ending up just here on this edge. So now it's time to remove the scrap wires. Now this top one usually comes out really easily. The other ones can be quite hard. So here's a little tip for you, is to get in here and be really careful, because you want to cut only the scrap wire and not your actual wires. But if you can get in there and cut it, then it's going to be like a shorter piece of wire. So it's going to come out a little easier. Let me see if that cut all the way through. Yeah. Yeah, see, there we go. Now it's like one piece on one side and one piece on the other side, and you just kind of have to pull on it and just wiggle it through. So we got this one out. I'm just gonna work on getting this one out. And then that bottom wire, that one is the hardest. There it is. We just have to get it through two more. There we go. All right, now this last one. This one's tough because you can't even really cut it. There's like so little space there. I can try to, eventually we're going to bend this into like a circular shape. So sometimes when you start bending it, these little bits start kind of separating. And you can see that little wire. So I'm going to try and get in here and cut it. There we go. So I can pull that out. And now I'm just going to pull on the other end. Might need to straighten it back up. Probably won't come out if it's curved. Almost got it. Just has to go through these two. Sorry it's taking so long. It's just because I'm holding my hands in front of the camera. I can't really like grip as well as I normally grip. Oh, there we go. So we got all of those out, and we just have our little pattern. So now we can go ahead and bend it in a circle. If you need something to bend it around, if that's helpful to you, then you can go ahead and grab something kind of round, like maybe some round nose pliers or bail making pliers, or you can just kind of eyeball it. It's up to you. So I put these little bends up here because I want these two wires to kind of come together eventually. Kind of like this. All right, so now I'm just gonna press these together, like that. So some of these might have got spread out a little bit, so it's kind of up to you to make it look whatever looks, you know, best in terms of getting them to be all symmetrical and stuff. All right, so Now it's time to make our bail. Now if you are using round wire, you'd use maybe 26 or 28 gauge round wire and do like a little weaving pattern here for the bail, but I'm using half round wire and I'm using 24 gauge. And because it's half round wire, I don't need to do a weaving pattern, I can just wrap it around. So I'm gonna start with the little tail end of my wire here. Just gonna wrap it a few times to get me started. And then you just guide it with your hand, and with the other hand you turn the piece. And this is gonna be our bail. So once this is tall enough to be your bail, we're just going to press down on it with our pliers. If you've used half round wire, if you just used round wire and made a little weaving pattern, then you don't need to do that. All right, so you decide which is the front and which is the back. So on the back is where we want our wire ends to end up. So I'm just trimming. And then this wire here, you actually don't want to trim it, you want to leave it nice and long. Cut yourself a long end, maybe like 6 inches long or something, because we're going to use that. So now, this is our front. I'm just going to hold it with my pliers, or you can hold it with your hands too, actually. I think that might be easier, because these little spikes are preventing me from getting in here with my pliers. So I'm just bending it into a nice rounded bail shape, and I want the end of my wrap to come here to the beginning of the wrap. So I want them to meet up. Now before you completely close this up, put a little curve. Okay, so mine are uneven. The little ends here are uneven. I'm just gonna trim one off. They're nice and long. You want them to be long because you're gonna need that to secure your stone. So we're gonna go ahead and kind of put a curve into them so that they can fit through here. And then we're just gonna pull them through. So this part is very similar to the sun pendant, if you watched the sun pendant tutorial. And this part is like the same. All right. So now with this wire, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wrap it around the whole bail. So it's in the back here because it was the tail end of this wire here. And we're gonna wrap it all around the front. And pull it back to the back. So now our bail is connected and attached. And now here in the back, we want to take that wire and let me curve the little end of it. We want to wrap it around the 2 wires there. It can be kind of tricky though because there's not a lot of room there. All right. There we go. What you can do is, as long as you get it under, so you can kind of see it here on the other side, you can grab it with your pliers. To pull it through. All right, so you can see a few wraps forming there. We're just gonna do a little more. All right, so that's probably good, about halfway down. So now I'm just gonna trim it. I want my wire end to end up on the front, so I'm gonna trim it so that it's a long end, that it's not gonna end up here on the back. It's gonna go all the way around, like when I push down on it. And if I look here in the front, here's my little wire end sticking up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and push that down. All right, and then if you can get in there to press everything down, but it might be a little tricky. So now we're gonna separate our wires here, these two wires like this. So we're gonna need a little stone, and the stone kind of depends on what will fit. So if you have some tiny stones and you just kind of see how they would fit here in this little space, that's what I like to do, to see which one works out best. This one is probably about 6 millimeters, and it's a little silky white moonstone. Just want to sit it in here, and then these two wires that we've separated, we're gonna push them onto the stone. You have to hold the stone so it doesn't pop out. That's why I'm kind of blocking it with my finger here. Sorry about that. But if I don't do that, my stone's gonna fall out. There we go. So this is how we're gonna trap our stone in there. You can go ahead and get in here with your pliers to make things a little bit more even or symmetrical. So I'm just gonna turn this wire here because it's square in my case, and it got turned on its side. So kind of didn't match this one. All right, so that looks decent. So we have one wire that's going underneath, and then another wire that's going on top of it. All right, so this wire that's going underneath, we're just bending it around and around. And then once you've kind of bent it here around the back of the bale, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna trim it and leave myself a little end so I can tuck that end inside of the bale. So let's try that out. There we go. So it's connected now. By doing that, we've connected the wire. It won't come up. And now for this other wire, we're just gonna go ahead and wrap it around as well. So push it to the back here. But then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push it around and to the front. So instead of finishing up in the back and tucking it into the bale, which you could do that if you don't like swirls, but if you like swirls, go ahead and wrap it all the way around so it's on the front, and then you can trim it and make a little swirl. So I'm just squishing the little end of it. And I have my round nose pliers here that I'm working with. And I'm just grabbing that little squished end and making a nice little swirl. Like that. And I'm just gonna press down on that swirl with my pliers. And there we have it. It is completed. It's a little star pendant featuring a silky moonstone. Here is what the back of it looks like. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.